Good morning. Today's edition of the Daily Word. I'm Jeremiah, and I want to look with you at one of the stories from Mark 6. In particular, Mark 6, verses 1 to 6. And what we've got here is one of the saddest stories in the New Testament. One of the most tragic tales of hardness of heart and unbelief. A story that reveals the damning power of unbelief. You know, there's only 2 occasions in the entire New Testament where Jesus is ever said to marvel at something, like to be amazed. The first is in Matthew 8:10. And in Matthew 8:10, Jesus is amazed at the faith of the centurion. It's a good thing. Well, the only other occasion is here in our story in Mark 6. And he's not amazed at their faith. He's amazed at their lack of faith. He's amazed at unbelief. According to verse 1, Jesus is in Nazareth. Nazareth is Jesus' hometown. And this is the second visit the Bible records of Jesus' visit to Nazareth. The first one did not go well. In Luke 4, he talks about his first visit. Jesus preached in their synagogue. At the end of his message, they tried to throw him off a cliff. Needless to say, it wasn't a positive first visit. This one isn't quite as bad, but it's equally tragic. This is a hostile town to Jesus. He grew up there, and they know him intimately. The town's only like 500 people, so everybody knows him. And so on the second visit, the first one, they tried to kill him. And on the second one, we'll see their tragic rejection. I want to, in particular, highlight 4 features of the damning power of unbelief. 4 features of the damning power of unbelief. The first one is simply this. Unbelief blinds the unbelieving. It blinds the unbelieving. Look at verse 2. The people are astonished at Jesus and they say, where does he get this power, these miracles, this teaching? And they're asking this with a dubious heart, a questioning heart, a skeptical heart. And the idea is unbelief blinds the unbelieving because they can't make sense of reality. They're saying, oh, where does he get his power for the miracles and the teaching? Well, it's obvious. Who else does miracles but God? Those empowered by God. The teaching was so distinct, it had to be from God. And yet unbelief blinds them, so they say, we can't make sense of this. We're confused and confounded by this. Next, you should know that unbelief focuses on the trivial. Unbelief misses the forest for the trees. Look at their response in verse 3. They begin to say, isn't Jesus the son of the carpenter? And they talk about his family lineage. What in the world does his family lineage have to do with his power and his teaching? Nothing. It doesn't have anything to do with that. It's totally irrelevant. They're missing the boat entirely. And so that's why they focus on the trivial, because that's what unbelief does. You miss the forest for the trees, you focus on the trivial, you totally miss the import of his teaching and his miracles pointing to his divinity, and you instead focus on things like, well, we know his family. What does that have to do with anything? You've probably experienced that when you evangelize and when an unbeliever says something like, well, the Bible was written by men. What is, totally an irrelevant point when you're talking about heaven and hell and salvation. The next feature of unbelief is it goes on the offensive. It goes on the offensive. We see this in verse 3. They took offense at him, and even before they take offense at him, I want you to see, they say, is not this Jesus the son of Mary? Well, you might say, well, what's so big about that? That's just a question. Well, in the culture of that day, you didn't refer to someone as the son of the mother. You refer to them as the son of the father. That was the polite custom. So you should expect them to say, is not this Jesus, the son of Joseph? It's very likely that the reason they say Jesus, the son of Mary, is because this is an attack on him. And this is hinting at the illegitimacy of his birth. Remember the scandal surrounding his birth and his Mary being pregnant as it looked out of wedlock. Well, it seems that's what they're hinting at here. So this is an ad hominem attack. This is them going on the offensive. This is a jab at Jesus. And note further that it says they took offense. The original language means they were scandalized. They were scandalized by what Jesus says. They take offense, and so they begin to attack him. And that's what unbelief does. It goes on the offense against the faithful messenger. Fourthly, I want you to see that unbelief strangles the supernatural. It strangles the supernatural. Now look at the end of this story in verse 5. He could do no miracles except a very few. And the idea isn't that the people's unbelief somehow sapped his miracle power, like it thwarted his ability to do miracles. No, because remember, the purpose of a miracle is to validate the messenger as coming from God, as having the message of God. Well, there was no need to perform miracles because the people rejected his status as God's messenger, rejected him as God. And so what purpose was there to do miracles when they had already denied the validity of the messenger? And this is again pointing to the fact that unbelief strangles the supernatural. That's why he only did a few miracles, because they rejected him. And here we have a story about the damning, tragic power of unbelief. We'll see you next time.